Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, and this week I'm here with Mr. Sizzle, otherwise known as Chandler Zirkle. I guess I threw him off with that introduction. For those of you who don't know, turning the page, we like to go over the events of the week in comics, review them, give our thoughts and opinions on them. Sometimes it's stuff about the store, not just the comic industry, like in general. So this week we're going to start with Moon Girl. This character's been pushed by Marvel for the last several years. She has a comic book series. She has a Disney Plus show on the horizon, an animated one. Some great voice actors attached to it. However, her sales have always been kind of low in regards to a character that a company is pushing. So do you think that she deserves the hype?
I think if you look based on comic sales, you could very easily make a case that she probably doesn't deserve her own TV show on Disney Plus, especially since there's only been, a couple that have been announced that have been coming out so far. So if you only have a few places to go, people might say, really, you're gonna waste a TV show on this character. However, I think that, and we've talked about this, that because it is an animated show, there is a lot of, DC has their young line of superhero girls and things like that. A lot of kids really like that. They delve into that. I think that they're hoping, Marvel, that with this animated series, plant the seeds, kids would flock to that, and then that would pay off in a little bit. As those kids discover that character, really like it, they get a little bit older, want to read comics on their own. They say, oh, wow, I remember that show. I love that show. She's got her own comics. I want to read about that.
So I think that the reason she hasn't been as popular as she could have been, and again, we have discussed this in the past, immediately they were like, oh, she's one of the top, smartest people in the Marvel Universe. They didn't give her time to grow into that role. If they had given her that opportunity, I think they could have provided moments that allowed readers to be more attracted to her, see her growth and development. Those are what really impact people when they watch a character. Peter Parker, everybody knows his top life moments, like the death of Gwen Stacy, the death of Uncle Ben, Norman becoming Green Goblin. All these things are things that happen to him. If Marvel had just been like, hey, this is this character and it used to be his friend or whatever, it would have had a lot less impact without actually showing it. One of the things they tell you in creative writing is always show, don't tell. And so by immediately doing that, I feel like they kind of put an albatross around her neck and inhibited her from becoming a super successful character.
Right. They didn't give you the time to grow with the character. That might have been their end goal. That was always their plan, for her to be, this, third or fourth smartest person in the Marvel Universe. But you can't just shove that down somebody's throat and expect everybody to take it. Like you said, you need that a little bit of, okay, here's the end game, but we want to get you there. We want you to grow with the character type of deal, which I think with any new character introduction, I think you run that risk. You want to be able to have that slow growth, but are people going to be willing to, how long does that growth have to be to endure that with you? So I can see from Marvel, I see both sides of it, why you might want to rush it immediately to try to be like, look, this is really cool. You don't even have to, you don't have to follow along for 3 years. You can dive right in. But I do agree that I think better storytelling happens when you do allow that process.
But there's even writing techniques to do that. I mean, you could even have a 1-page opening where it's 5 years in the future and showing her being a very important person, and then flashing back to let's see how she got there, sort of thing.
Right.
But I think that she has the potential to still be a breakout character, one that people are attracted to. But I feel like they did rob her of a lot of her potential moments and to get to where she is.
Yeah.
So we'll turn the page on that topic, and we'll move on to the next one. And I know this one was one that you were not all that familiar with before last week when I threw it at you. So we're going to talk about NFTs, which are a non-fungible token. It's an authentication that is a kind of certification of authenticity for digital media. Pablo Rodriguez, an art collector, had bought a 10-second video last year for $67,000. It was authenticated by blockchain as being the original, and then 2 weeks ago he sold it for $6.6 million. So that's a heck of a return on his investment. Christie's auction house is also starting to sell NFTs through their business. Grimes sold 10 pieces for close to $6 million also, and that happened within the course of 20 minutes, is my understanding. Comic creators are also starting to be lured into this. Jock is one of your favorite creators, and he is one of the ones testing the market on that. Do you think this will impact the comic industry in other ways?
So on a week-to-week basis of somebody picking up comics at their local shop, I don't really think that this is going to affect them as much. I think for artists who, especially possibly even newer artists who are up and coming, for a long time you really have to scrape and thrive, and and literally write and draw and color your hands off until they bleed, until you can get your name out there, until people really appreciate you. And if you are able to do that, you're able to get those big contracts with Marvel, DC, Image, those big covers, splash pages that do make you money. You are able to do that, but sometimes it can take a long time. It's a grind, and not everybody can survive it. I think with this, we've seen a lot of people, obviously the bigger names first because people recognize them. I know the guy who drew Wonder Woman in the 70s and 80s. He just sold a bunch of collections for a couple $1 million, and I think people,
that actually made me happy, because
yes,
I was like
I said, I think it's great for those creative people to be able to have those funds, that their work, their hard work, that they've put all these, especially the ones who have put so many years and their heart and soul into this business, if they're able to make a profit on that, awesome. For collectors who have those funds, that want to be able to grab those pieces and have the very first, have that authentication, if that's what they're into and they have the funds to do it, awesome, more power to them. I think for the rest of, there, like you said, there's musicians, there's YouTubers, everybody's kind of getting into this like adjacent to Bitcoin of this electronic funds and things like that. I think it's probably going to last, but I don't know if the prices that we are seeing right now and everything are going to continue to skyrocket as high as they are. I think right now it's hot, and everybody's trying to get whatever they can for and sell whatever they can for what they have.
I think there's a lot of potential for social influencers to also cause people to spend money on stuff that or even hype up stuff that
is not worth the
is
money.
Not, yeah.
Well, you could argue that anything's not
I
worth
agree.
the money.
Well,
but,
you know my feeling about that on comics also, that there's some people who hype up stuff
But there's, something's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yes. So I've told you before, and I know when we discussed this before, you had said, younger people are going to be more apt to get into this than older people. It has some pushers for it. Mark Cuban was one of the ones. Elon Musk was pushing for it. I'm obviously in the older group, and I'm like, I don't understand it. Why would you want a piece of digital media that can be replicated? Who cares whether you have the original or the 1 millionth copy of it?
I'm in the younger demographic, and I can kind of understand it, but I don't necessarily agree with it. Like I was telling you before, I can also, right-click, copy, save an image, and I have it in my files too. Now, it's not the authentic first copy of whatever. So again, if you are a collector, you have those funds, that's something that's really, really important to you, and you don't mind that you don't have the physical copy in your hands. And I think that is where the chasm is growing wider, is that you do have this generation where Mark Cuban's kind of yelling at them, and he's like, guys, physical stuff is trash now, move on, it is what it is, dollar bills don't mean anything anymore, it's all it's online, it's electronic, it's whatever, move on, deal with it. And I think there is obviously truth to that. That is where it's going. I don't think that physical copies and things are completely out the window like he's trying to say. I think there's still room for both.
Well, look at records. People were like, oh, records are dead 25 years ago, and it's come back around.
Cycles back. Yep.
And I'm not saying records are a huge part of the market, but there are clearly people who still prefer the physical, tangible.
Yes. And it's younger people who are, my age and even younger than me, that are coming back and saying oh, this is cool, and they're throwing way more money than the people who had it originally would have ever put into it, because they're like, this is vintage, this is rustic, it's cool, it's awesome. It makes them feel old, but it makes record companies and music stores feel great because they're making a lot of money.
And they do limited edition ones.
Yes, and then the record sales last year, I was reading a report on that. It was something crazy insane amount. It was way more than the last records they were holding for CDs and things like that. It influxed insanely. Obviously, it didn't surpass digital copies of things, but a crazy amount in the year 2020, when you would have thought those numbers would have been from
declining.
1967 or something like declining. That. Yes.
I will say one more thing. NFTs do have a positive in that there are a lot of artists that work in the digital medium exclusively.
Right.
And we have had this discussion again before. The people who work in the physical medium, where they actually hand draw everything, always had something else to sell. They had the actual originals to sell. So it is beneficial for them to have something else to do. And I know a lot of digital artists have kind of moved to prints also. Hey, we're going to do a 500 copy print limited edition.
But now they don't necessarily have to with these non-fungible tokens. They can keep it with what they're comfortable and what their experience is, and they can stay digital, and the market's moving with them. So they're able to make the money they should be able to make the same way that people who had printed copies do. So like I said, I think it's great for those creators, those artists, and anybody who's willing to do that. And like I said, if somebody's willing to pay that amount of money for it, no matter how crazy I think it is, like, then that's what it's worth.
Well, I'm glad somebody has like $6 million to spend on a digital piece.
Yeah.
But we will turn the page on that topic. I'm sure we'll return to it at a later time and review kind of like where the market has gone. Maybe we'll make it a monthly topic where we revisit it and see whether it's still going up, going down. We'll see. So our next topic is Amazing Spider-Man number 60. The last page of that issue had a big reveal. There will be spoilers in this topic and the next one. In 2007, Amazing Spider-Man 544, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man 24, Sensational Spider-Man 41, and Amazing Spider-Man 545 told the storyline of One More Day. This followed up the Civil War storyline, wherein Aunt May was shot due to Peter Parker revealing himself to be Spider-Man.
Thanks, Tony.
And Peter Parker went to several different people, including Doctor Strange, and begged him for help. Like, hey, please save my Aunt May. Doctor Strange said, I don't mess with death. You'll have to find somebody else.
Sorry, but you're on your own.
And then a hero arose.
Somebody who was absolutely willing to help Peter.
Always willing to make a deal.
Always.
Mephisto showed up and was like, hey, maybe they don't mess with death, but I do. And I have a deal for you. If you give up your marriage to Mary Jane Watson, I will save your Aunt May. Peter Parker was a little wary of making the deal. Mary Jane assured Peter it was okay, that they would find each other again. So this week, on the last page of Amazing Spider-Man, or on the last page of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange showed up and he said that he realized something was wrong with Peter Parker's soul. Do you think this is further torture for the Amazing Spider-Man fans, or do you think that there is an endgame wherein the couple ends up back together?
Well, Nick Spencer, as you know, has a history of loving to torment fans with everybody who loved Captain America, Hail Hydra, everything along those lines. So it could be up his card sleeves. Anytime I think anybody sees Mephisto anywhere near Peter Parker, everybody automatically gets defensive, wants to grab him in a bear hug with their hands out and say, get away from him. You've done enough. Stay back. Stay away from Peter. He suffered too much. And he really has. It would be really devastating for people who really love that character, because he has been going through, for anyone who has been reading Amazing Spider-Man, a lot with Harry and with everything in his life, and just recently like finding himself back with Mary Jane. Like, he's had a lot of downs very recently that he is just starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And so for Doctor Strange,
hopefully it's not a train.
Right, for Doctor Strange to come and say, oh hey, there's something wrong with Peter Parker's soul, and then maybe not the number one face, but one of the biggest faces you see next to Peter Parker's, and you go, oh no, something really bad's about to happen to you.
Don't make another deal, Peter.
Right, don't do it. Don't make another deal. So we'll see. But his grin at the end of the comic makes it seem that he definitely knows what's going on with Peter. Whether he's the one pulling the strings, he seems like he knows what's going on.
Yes. And the weird thing, so a couple different things also. J. Michael Straczynski, who wrote that storyline, wanted his name off of the book when it originally happened. He felt like it was not the right way to go. As you just touched upon, Nick Spencer could restore his name after the debacle of Captain America, and how a lot of people were kind of disenchanted with him becoming a Hydra agent.
Or he could double down.
Going back to the Quesada, or to the One More Day part, though, Quesada was the one that pushed for that because he felt like having Peter Parker married aged the character. So currently, they have ways out of that. It's okay to have an aged Peter Parker now, because now they have Miles Morales, who is a younger version of the character, and going through the parts, that Peter did in his earlier adventures. So now it doesn't seem like they're as tied or as scared of having like an older version of Peter Parker or Spider-Man, now that they have a flip side. I could see them restoring the marriage mostly due to that. I think that they're hoping to have their cake and eat it too. Like, they have the older guy, like, mirroring older fans' experiences, and then they also have the younger Spider-Man mirroring the younger readers' experiences. I think it's probably a brilliant marketing move. I think that it helps diversify the two characters. What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I definitely, as a comic book fan and somebody who likes Spider-Man, I think it would be more enjoyable for us if we didn't have to see Peter tortured with something else, and he was able to get that marriage back, and he is able, like I said, things are starting to look up. He's had a long row of, the character who ended up being Harry again, who can just never let anything go and continue. As much as Peter wants that friendship back, it just seems like it's never going to happen. He's tortured with that. And I think, like you said, for a while, I mean, and Joe Quesada came out and said, he's like, Peter Parker's too old. Like, he's supposed to be a kid. We need to have him younger, because they didn't have that character then. They have Miles Morales now. And I mean, like, if we're not kidding ourselves, Marvel is not afraid to put out another Spider-Man book. If they want to have a younger, like a flashback book of, like, here's Peter, like, in high school, they'll put that book out. I think it would be a missed opportunity if they were to retcon all of that and take it back to square one and not have him end up with MJ and do more torturous things to him. I mean, people would follow along for the story, but it definitely would cut the fan base pretty deep.
Yeah. So we will come back to that topic and see how that progresses, whether Peter and Mary Jane's marriage is restored or not. I guess you're tossing your pennies in the wishing well.
Well, I'm trying. I'm gonna stay optimistic. I've been very optimistic ever since our next topic.
All right, getting into the optimism. 5-minute topic. Over the past 10 years, DC has kind of lost its path, gone in a darker direction. You could even go further back than that, than just 10 years, but I feel like the driving force of it over the last 10 years has been darker. New 52 was a darker universe. About 4 or 5 years ago, Jeff Johns seemingly restored it back to its more positive roots with DC Rebirth. A couple years after that, however, Dark Knight's metal seemed to infect the rest of the DCU and pushed it into the darker elements once again. It definitely got kind of derailed by Dan Didio, Scott Snyder, and the death metal or Dark Knight's metal storyline. Having now seen Infinite Frontier #0, Hope seems to be back along with a laundry list of characters. What were the highlights of this issue for you?
I think the highlights of this issue is just, Wonder Woman getting, right off the bat, after, for those of you who did not read Death Knight's metal, like we said, there will be some spoilers, she essentially, having defeated the Batman Who Laughs, was kind of brought on by, you couldn't tell, a completely white entity. She was seeing the original version of herself, was walking her up, and basically, like, there are people that want to talk to you, like, thank you for your service. She's kind of in limbo. We didn't know if she had died or if she was still alive or what was going on. We find out in this issue that she is alive, but she is kind of not right on the mortal plane exactly right now, because she is being met with the quintessence.
She's being offered.
And being offered godhood and being able to offer the job of watching over and caring and creating over the entire universe, which instead of 52 or multiverses now, infinite amount of universes. They're like, there are so many now. We need some help. You have clearly done, you have laid down on your sword as this many times. Like, you were clearly of good heart, good character. We could use you on here. And she goes, well, I can't just leave everybody.
There's
so
a
they're like,
darkness on
fine,
the horizon.
yeah, like I was told I should be wary. There's something evil that's lurking back there. And they're like, no, we haven't seen anything. But if you need to check on everybody, we'll show you everybody's okay. So they send Spectre out with her, and she goes and gets to see a lot of her old friends, some enemies, some people. There was a touching thing with her mom of making sure that her mother's okay. Big thing for me was, I'm a big fan of Wally West. I'm also a big fan of Green Arrow, and his original sidekick, who he has found is now miraculously back to life. So that was a big fist
all the
pump
redheads
moment.
are back.
All the redheads are back. The other redhead, which I know is a big huge moment for you, is back in all red, and he's taking over as the Flash, as Barry has his promotion.
Long, Barry.
He has his promotion to go out and explore his scientific roots. I'm sure he's all happy about that, all those infinite universes, but he has left the mantle again.
Well, he's
to
going
Wally
specifically
West.
to investigate Earth Omega.
Yes.
So.
And what is possibly lurking there that we don't know yet at this time. But, like I said, Arsenal is back, and he's attempting to call Green Arrow, but he, kind of throws the phone in the trash and is like, I'm not ready for that conversation yet.
Dinah and Ollie are back together.
They are back together. That is something that you love to see. Aquaman and Mera, although they weren't heavily featured in it and they don't have a solo title yet, they had just gotten married. People weren't sure if that was going to stay, if that was going to retcon. They have a child together as well, but we have seen that they are together, happy, alive, and well, raising their kid.
Babs is back as Oracle.
Yes, she is, by choice.
Yes.
All right, Joker didn't have anything to do with this time, so she is choosing to sit behind the chair. We have 2 Batgirls now at the same time, so for anybody who is a Cassandra Cain fan or Stephanie Brown, now you got 2 for 1. They're both back together wearing that mantle.
Well,
So
I would say 3 for 1 because even Bab said, every once in a while I'll put back on the
yeah,
suit.
I'm not necessarily retired. This is what I'm choosing to do. But anytime I want to, I can throw back that cape back on.
And my personal favorite returns, Obsidian and Jade. They did kind of a compromise with the new 52 and the older one, which I was okay with.
And what had happened in the Green Lantern 80th anniversary story, with them sticking to the storyline where Alan Scott is gay and coming to terms with that, but they didn't mention anything about his children. So a lot of fans were curious as to what happened. Does that mean that they were going to retcon and say that they never existed? But I like what you said. I think they really did a good, middle of the road. They were like, yes, he still has his kids. They're still here, but he had them, but he was doing, and it fits for the time, what he thought he had to do. He had to have a wife. He had to have kids because that's what everybody else was doing. Mm-hmm. He wasn't able to come out and say who he was and be able to be happy and have his truth out there. But now it's 2021. He's got his role in a different place. He's no longer where he is. He's aged up. He's seen that the world's come and to be understanding of a lot of things. So he's able to have that touching moment where he finally says it out loud to his 2 kids.
And this summer, he's going to go on a hunt for his missing JSA counterparts, which I'm hoping launches into a great JSA series because I love the one that Jeff Johns wrote.
Absolutely.
So. But my favorite moment of all of it, despite loving Wally West and Barry Allen being sent on his way. Bye, Barry. I'll keep saying that, by the way. And I know he's not gone. But anyway, my favorite moment was at the end when Wonder Woman, Spectre was like, "Oh, cool! So we proved to you that there's nothing out there. Come join us. We're glad you got to say goodbye to everybody." And she's like, "No."
Are you kidding me? You just told me how great the world is now and how there's so much opportunity, infinite possibilities. I can't pass that up.
I want to be a part of that.
I want to be a part of it. I want to explore. And they're like, "Oh, we didn't even get to tell her that we already neutralized the threat. She didn't have anything to worry about. Spectre, what'd you do? You messed it up. You're supposed to convince her this way, not
You're
the
the
other
closer.
way. You were the closer. What did you do?" And then we found out that the threat that we had thought was neutralized on Earth Omega has not been neutralized,
nope.
And in fact took out the quintessence.
And very angry
in one fell swoop.
Very angry about how he's been treated over the last 10 years.
And we have Dan Abnett, one of me and John's favorite writers, to thank about that for a really underrated Justice League Odyssey series where he was really, really taking that character for all the damage that had been done through, becoming a baby, through Tom King writing him in a weird Mr. Miracle story. He had brought him back up, and if anything, even more powerful than he has ever been. And like you said, he is very pissed off.
Yeah. So we will see it is Darkseid, and he is,
and he is back, and he is back with a vengeance.
Yeah. He is angry, and Tom King should be lucky he probably doesn't live in that universe because
he'd be coming for him first.
So we will turn the page on that one. I know you and I will definitely return to the Infinite Frontier topic over and over again, I'm sure, because both of us are liking what's going on with that. For our quick takes topic, we're going to cover, this is the last episode for March, and this is Women's History Month. Well, there is an influx of female creative talent right now. Comics have had an abundance of important women influence the industry, whether behind the scenes or on the page, for quite some time. Who are the 3 women you feel have been instrumental in your love of comics and the growth of the industry?
So for me, when I started off, I was definitely a big DC Marvel guy. I knew from the TV shows growing up, so independent books were not really on my radar. I was just getting into comics, but one of the big lines and a lot of the characters that I really enjoy came from Vertigo, and upon reading more of that and getting that research, I found out that the big person I have to thank for that, and has continued to do work that I should be thankful for both in Vertigo and in DC, moving that over,
and Dark Horse
is Karen Berger, who, if you're not familiar with, she had a very big hand in getting a lot of very popular Vertigo titles off the ground, helping implement that series or that
build budding
that
talent.
company, bring up people, hiring people, bringing them into the industry, and then eventually when Vertigo was bought out by DC and merged into that company, making sure those characters still had a place, somewhere to go, storylines still to be told, and then now has her line of Burger books and things like that, so still very much involved with the industry, with publishing, but a really smart lady, a lot of just a really good eye for talent and making sure that people who
Brian
should
K.
be writing.
Vaughan, Why the Last Man, Garth Ennis, Preacher, Warren Ellis, Transmetropolitan, Neil Gaiman, Sandman, Grant Morrison, with Animal Man. She has a long
Yeah.
list of
A
creators.
lot of characters and names that just roll off the tongue now. We all have to thank for Karen Berger for seeing those people, giving them that opportunity, and for some of them, really, really weird premises, but trusting in the process and letting them be able to tell their
Fables.
stories in a way that they, at the time, definitely could not have done at DC or Marvel.
Yeah. She was originally on my list of the top 3, but when you told me she was on yours, I bumped her off, not because I don't think she is in my top 3, but because I'd rather, spotlight another female in the industry as well. So my number 3 is Louise Simonson. She co-created the Power Pack. She co-created Apocalypse, Cable, Steel, Doomsday. More importantly for me, and all of those are important things, but when I first started reading comics, she was a writer on Superman. Death of Superman was one of the books, is the books that got me really to love comic books. The fallout from it bleeding over into Green Lantern and the fall of Hal Jordan, which I know you and I have done the whole thing for that. But I feel like she's done a lot on the page and definitely held her own against all the other top writers. She knows how to put together a superhero book very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on to your number 2.
So for my number 2 is somebody that I have more recently discovered within the last year or two, and that's to my detriment because she's a really, really talented writer. But G. Willow Wilson, she's been doing amazing things on Ms. Marvel. She's also been, for what I have been reading on a weekly basis, has a really great run on Wonder Woman that she was able to do. But to come up in a still, unfortunately, predominantly male industry, but also as a Muslim American, I think it was a wonderful opportunity for her to take a character like Miss Marvel and be able to showcase her in her own series, which has been incredibly popular, is very well written, smart, funny, has all the superhero things you want, all the action, but it's also a really, really great character that she writes very well, in the same vein as Wonder Woman, where she's able to take these women, put them right up against with all the other boys, the rest of the superheroes, show that they're just as good, if not better, and showcase them in a really great way. She's very talented. She pairs up with a lot of amazing artists and things like that, and I'm very excited to see how her career continues.
I'll be honest with you, as much as I like her writing, what really stood out for me was when that artist on X-Men Gold did those anti-Semitic and anti-Christian things in the background. She came out and said, hey, this guy needs to go. This is why people can't get jobs, because people think that all of us are like this and we're not. The fact that she came out and took a hard stand against that really impressed me. I think that it was the right decision, obviously, and obviously Marvel cut ties with that artist. Mm-hmm. But like I said, not just on the page, but I think also off the page, she takes it very seriously. My number 2 is Marie Severin. She was a colorist for EC Comics. She worked on Strange Tales. She was the head colorist at Marvel, I believe, in the 70s. She co-designed the Spider-Woman's original costume. She co-created the Cat/Tigra, and she also designed a lot of the toys for Marvel in the 80s. I think she's an unsung hero, especially since she started in the 40s when a lot of females were not in the industry at all. She laid the groundwork, proved hey, we can do this just as well. We just need to be given the opportunity. I think that also benefited her because she loved what she did. If you see any of her interviews and such, you can tell that she had a genuine love for the industry.
Yeah, like I said, very important. Like you said, at a time where not even just in the comic industry, but in a lot of industries, women weren't given an opportunity. So for her to have a start so farther back in time in the 40s, where it was really hard for women to get in any type of professional workplace, to be able to be bold, just show her passion, let her work speak for herself, and to open that door for so many women now that follow her.
Well, people should really check out the history of EC Comics because it was way more progressive than all the rest of the industry at that point. It's an actually very interesting read if people are interested in seeing all that.
It is, and John's incredibly biased, but it is interesting. But you do.
I am a little biased.
You do love your EC Comics.
I do. All right, so let's move on to number 1.
All right, for number 1 for me. A little bit of a cop-out, but I do think is still very important. So I do love I love independent books. I love Marvel. I love everything, but DC will always hold a special place in my heart. And one of my favorite characters, even from being a young kid watching the Justice League TV series, has always been Wonder Woman. And I thought, as I was younger, when you think of superheroes, I associate it with just, well, that's something for guys. That's something that boys do. Like, men are superhero. Like, you didn't see a lot of women. She was one of the first times I'd ever seen any type of female superhero that wasn't like a Lois Lane type or something like that, which no disrespect to Lois Lane. She's a super awesome woman. But at that time, she was more written as just, like great reporter, but doting wife or doting girlfriend or
Gets
Superman.
captured all the time.
Yes, gets captured all the time, is only there to fall out an airplane for Superman to swoop in and save the day. Wonder Woman really stood out immediately, and right away I was like, no, like not only do I not need your help, but I'm going to help you because you need my help because I'm super powerful. I think with the movie coming out in 2017, with Gal Gadot being cast and then Patty Jenkins, female director, a stunning cast of like strong female women, both in the producer's chair, in the actors, in the writing room, all around the room to really get that to showcase. And now I'm a teacher and I see young kids and girls now who are just as invested in the superheroes as boys and have all of these Wonder Woman shirts and I am brave and I am strong. And I think it has grown beyond the character of who she really embodies. It's more of the idea of what Wonder Woman represents, so that all these women can be Wonder Woman. They can be brave. They can stand up for what's right. They can be strong. They can speak the truth. They can not compromise and not have to in a male, still dominated world in a lot of places. I think what she has been able to do and the embodiment that her character captures through amazing stories told by, women and men all throughout the decades since her character was formed, but how she's come up in the world and has given a lot of other characters like Miss Marvel and Gwen Stacy and other female characters that have come out
even
now.
Lois Lane has
to
changed
be, and
a
even
lot
Lois
over.
Lane, exactly. She is not that person that falls out of an airplane to be caught by Superman. If anything, by the time Superman gets there, she's usually already taken care of the problem because she's just as smart and capable. So I think it's been really important. She didn't necessarily start out that way, but to what she's become and what she's embodied now, I think really helps represent something really awesome for women, and something that if I have a daughter one day, I hope that she sees herself in that same light.
And like we touched on, like the I felt like the most important moment in Infinite Frontier was the Wonder Woman moment. So definitely a good choice. My number one pick was Jeanette Kahn. She created Dynamite magazine for Scholastic, which was struggling at that point. It is attributed with saving the company from financial ruin. She moved to DC as publisher and then president. She definitely entered into an environment where there was a lot of resistance to her coming in as a neophyte, to the industry per se, and also as a female into an all male industry at that point, or at least in the upper management. She brought over Frank Miller from Marvel. She brought on Karen Berger, who helped build that part of the DC universe or DC conglomerate. She oversaw the creation of Superman versus Muhammad Ali, which had cross appeal into not just comic books, but into the sports market. People who watch boxing or any sports shows on the news at that point definitely were exposed to comics as a result of that. She oversaw the creation of Vertigo and also creating Milestone within the DC imprint. It wasn't theirs to own, but they brought it in and still made it a part of their DCU. She oversaw the Swamp Thing movie, which was kind of like DC's Blade at that point. Taking a lower level character and showing that, hey, even the lower tier characters can be impressive on the screen and create an atmosphere of love for the character. She also did Crisis and Titans. Wonder Woman by George Perez. And then, she also proved that comics weren't the only thing she could do. In 2006, she left to create Double Nickel Entertainment, which is a film production company. And they did Gran Torino. So she even has a pretty decent resume for that. So she's just an impressive person. Like I said, she did a lot to help DC. A lot of what she did, unfortunately, was undone by Dan Didio, the person we try not to talk about that much. But I feel like she laid a foundation that was very strong. In the 90s, she also did the whole legacy stuff. She had like the breaking of the Bat. She had the death of Superman, Aquaman losing his hand. Ollie stepping aside for Connor, all sorts of like things like that. I feel like her impact on the industry cannot be um, overstated. She is she is one of a kind, I think, and hopefully DC can find another voice like hers.
Absolutely.
So hopefully you enjoyed watching this episode of Turning the Page. We hope that you also check out the giveaway that we're doing. This is the last week you have to enter for that. This is for the Department of Truth, #1 variant cover by Jenny Frizen. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, please subscribe to our channel, and please leave a comment, maybe even a topic you think we should discuss in the future. Have a good day.